Welcome to Learning English, a daily 30-minute program from the Voice of America. I'm Ashley Thompson.
And I'm Dan Novak. This program is designed for English learners, so we speak a little slower, and we use words and phrases especially written for people learning English. Coming up on the program, Dan Friedel has the latest on the political crisis in Niger. Gregory Stockel reports on China's recent economic problems. Faith Perlow discusses the present tense for today's everyday grammar lesson. Later, we present the next part in our National Parks series on Arches National Park in Utah. But first,
defense leaders from the West African group of nations known as ECOWAS are meeting to discuss the political crisis in Niger. The leaders are concerned. The military group that ousted Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum in July did not answer an ECOWAS request to stand down or face an invasion. ECOWAS has 15 member countries and is based in Abuja, Nigeria. Outside security experts said ECOWAS has not been able to prevent leadership takeovers in other West African nations. That includes the recent government overthrows in Burkina Faso and Mali. This time, however, the group organized a standby force that is ready to move on the Nigerian capital of Niamey if Bazoum is not put back in place. In addition, the group put financial and travel restrictions on Niger. So far, nothing has changed. Defense experts say ECOWAS is running out of ways to put pressure on the group that took power in Niger. Andrew Lebovich studies Northern Africa for the Klingendahl Institute, a research group based in the Netherlands. He said, an intervention could backfire and damage ECOWAS in numerous ways, while a failure to extract major concessions from the soldiers in control could weaken the organization. Another group of African states, the African Union, met earlier this week to discuss whether it would support a military move by ECOWAS. The African Union includes 55 nations in Africa. The Union could prevent a military action by ECOWAS if it felt that the move would destabilize Niger and nearby countries. The status of who leads Niger is important to Western nations, including France and the United States. Both countries have soldiers in Niger. They have been working to train and support local soldiers in their fights against Islamic militant groups. Niger had been one of the last countries in the area with a democratic government. Since the military group pushed out Bazoum and took control in Niger, the US and France are no longer supporting the Nigerian soldiers. This makes Niger open to outside attacks. The Associated Press reports that 17 Nigerian soldiers were killed and over 20 were injured in an attack Tuesday in the Tillabéri area in the country's northwest. In Niamey, locals are concerned both about a military move by ECOWAS and the effects of financial and travel restrictions. Some of the electric power, most of which comes from Nigeria, has been cut off. Restaurant owners say they cannot keep food cold. The ECOWAS restrictions include limits on who can enter and leave Niger. They are also preventing aid workers from coming in with food and supplies. Louis Aubin is the coordinator in Niger for the United Nations. She is concerned that food and medical supplies inside Niger could run out because of the border restrictions. The UN and other aid groups said 4 million of the 25 million people in Niger needed assistance before the military takeover. They expect that number to increase. I'm Dan Friedel.
China's exports fell 14.5% in July compared with a year earlier. The report builds pressure on the ruling Chinese Communist Party to support measures to improve China's economy. In related economic news, a large Chinese financial services company has missed payments on some of its investment products, and a drop in home prices is adding to economic concerns in China. Chongrong International Trust Company holds a lot of property investments. A top official told investors that the company failed to make payments on a number of investment products since late last month. On Tuesday, customs information was released showing that imports have fallen 12.4%. That hurts global exporters who see China as a big market for industrial materials, food, and goods. Exports fell to $281.8 billion as the decrease sped up from June's 12.4% decrease. The value of imports has fallen to $201.2 billion. In addition, the country's global trade surplus decreased by 20.4% to $80.6 billion from a record high a year ago. Chinese leaders are trying to increase business and buyer activity. Economic growth after COVID-19 restrictions were lifted in December has decreased earlier than expected. Economic growth fell to 0.8% in the 3 months ending in June. China reported 2.2% of growth from January to March of this year. Those numbers suggest a 3.2% yearly growth rate, which would be among China's weakest in 30 years. Demand for Chinese exports decreased after the American government and governments in Europe and Asia started raising interest rates in 2022. Their goal was to reduce inflation, which had reached levels not seen in many years. Capital Economics is a research company based in London. It said the decrease in exports was the largest since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. It said the decrease was mostly caused by lower prices, while the amount of goods was above levels before 2020. We expect exports to decline further over the coming months before bottoming out toward the end of the year, said Capital Economics in a report. It added that it expects the near term to remain difficult for the buying of goods in developed economies. I'm Gregory Stockel.
The band Fall Out Boy recently released a version of the song We Didn't Start the Fire. The song was first released in 1989 by the singer-songwriter Billy Joel. Joel's song was about notable events and people in the United States and throughout the world from the years 1948, when Joel was born, to 1989. More than 30 years have passed since then. Now, Fall Out Boy remade the song to include events from 1989 to 2023. Joel's song was in chronological order, meaning the events are presented in the order in which they took place. Fall Out Boy's version is not chronological. Another difference between the two is Fall Out Boy's remake uses more full sentences. Both songs are mainly lists of people, places, and events that many Americans are likely to remember. In today's Everyday Grammar, we will explore some of the different ways that the present tense is used in the song, and some additional grammar points. We use the present tense not only to describe action happening now, but to talk about habits and repeated actions. The present tense is also used to talk about beliefs that people hold now and are likely to continue to have in the future. The updated song moves back and forth between more recent events and events many years ago. Sometimes events from the past are described using the present tense. Here is an example. Michael Jackson dies. Third person singular, simple present tense. To form the simple present tense, we use subject plus base verb plus the rest of the sentence. Make sure to add an S to the base verb with the third person singular form, he, she, or it. With some verbs that end in letters like O, C, or a combination of some consonants, we add an ES ending to the third person singular, as in goes from this line in the song. White rhino goes extinct. Here, the use of go in the third person present tense is an informal way to say becomes extinct. It is also worth noting that the ES ending sounds like z rather than s. In the song, we see the modal verb can in the negative with a contraction. I can't take it anymore. Can't take it anymore is an expression meaning that you are not able or refuse to accept something that is difficult or bad in some way. The song even uses the passive voice in the present tense with the verb get in place of the auxiliary or helping verb be. Trump gets impeached twice. To form the passive, subject plus form of the verb be or get plus past participle of transitive verb plus rest of the sentence. Next, the band refers to the terrorist attack on the United States on September 11th, 2001. World Trade, second plane, what else do I have to say? The question, what else do I have to say, can also be found in the first version of the song. This question is rhetorical, meaning an answer is not expected. Instead, the question is asked to have a dramatic effect on the listener. The question does not need an answer because it is only asked to prove a point or an argument. This question means there is nothing more to say because I have said everything necessary. In today's Everyday Grammar, we looked at the use of the present tense. In the song, we didn't start the fire. We also considered rhetorical questions and passive voice, and even the modal verb can. I'm Faith Perlow.
You just heard Faith Perlow present this week's Everyday Grammar lesson. Welcome back to the show, Faith.
Thanks, Dan. This week, I wrote about the present tense and other verbal constructions in Fall Out Boy's remake of Billy Joel's song, We Didn't Start the Fire.
You mentioned that the new version does not have events in order from beginning to last, and that the updated song has more sentences.
Yes, that's true, Dan. There are many more whole sentences in the verses of the song and not just the chorus. Many of those sentences are in the present tense and are very short, simple sentences.
Why do you think the present tense was used if most of these events are in the past?
I think for the sake of simplicity, because the song moves very fast. Also, there is something called the historical present. It is the use of the present tense when talking about past events, especially when listing a series of events, which is what happens in the song. The historical present is used a lot in fiction writing, news, and everyday conversations.
Interesting. Are there any other events that you would cover that are not in the updated song by Fall Out Boy?
Well, the band specifically left out the pandemic and COVID-19. I would add that because of the world impact. And they mention the Crimea Peninsula, but do not mention the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, nor do they mention Putin by name. What about you, Dan? What would you add?
I would definitely add COVID, but for something a little bit more positive, I would mention the baseball player Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani has become one of the best baseball players in a generation in just the past couple years, and I'm a huge fan. Anyway, thanks for coming on the show, Faith.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Today, on our national parks journey, we travel to Utah. The western state is home to several of the most popular national parks in America. Today, we travel to the eastern part of the state. We visit a park filled with strange and beautiful colored rock formations. These formations have been created over millions of years. They curve and narrow and balance on top of one another. Some are extremely thin. Others have huge cracks, yet remain standing. Many of the rock formations seem to ignore the rules of gravity. Welcome to Arches National Park.
Arches are formations that look like half a circle standing up. Sometimes they create a curved bridge between two large rocks. Arches National Park contains the most natural rock arches of any place on Earth. The smallest arches are less than a meter across. The largest, called Landscape Arch, measures 93 meters from one base of the arch to the other. Water and ice, extreme temperatures, and many layers of salt underground created these rock formations over hundreds of millions of years. The huge amount of salt is the remains of an ancient sea. It covered the area around 300 million years ago. As time passed, the area filled with material left by rivers. Rocks buried the area. This created pressure on the underground salt bed.
Salt under pressure moves easily. It is not stable. The thick cover of rock created pressure on the salt. It moved this way and that, making the rock layers above move as well. A soft rock called sandstone moved upwards. It met with other harder rocks. These sandstone structures continued to grow for about 150 million years. Scientists say water is the most important element in creating arches. Water destroys the chemicals that keep rock particles together. The rock breaks as the water freezes and expands. Then the wind blows away the loose rock pieces. Erosion from wind and weather slowly removed layers of younger rock. Most of the layers of rock seen today are pinkish-red in color. The rock is called Entrada sandstone. Experts say that most arches seen in the park today developed within the past million years. But the land formations continue to change slowly over time.
But sometimes change happens quickly. In 2008, a formation called Wall Arch suddenly collapsed. Thousands of tons of sandstone crashed to the ground, creating a thunderous noise. It is not easy to predict when arches might collapse. Wall Arch was not as thin as Landscape Arch, for example. Wall Arch also did not have visible cracks, but many tiny breaks within the stone made the arch weaker than others. Some formations within the park look as though the gentlest wind could send huge pieces of rock crashing to the ground. These are called balanced rocks. The most famous of all is simply called Balanced Rock. This sandstone rock is the size of 3 school buses. It sits on top of a tower of darker rock called mudstone. The formation is about 39 meters tall. This bottom rock narrows sharply where it connects to the sandstone rock on top. Scientists call this a bridge. Mudstone weathers much more quickly than sandstone. One day, far in the future, balanced rock will no longer be balanced. Just as Wall Arch did, balanced rock will collapse.
The names of the rock formations give you information about their appearance or structure. The most famous arch within the park is named Delicate Arch. Delicate means easily broken or damaged, but it can also mean very carefully and beautifully made. Delicate Arch is a huge freestanding arch. It is 19 meters high and 13 meters wide. Humans have called it many different names throughout history. The name Delicate Arch first appeared in a 1934 article. Scientists described it as the most delicately chiseled arch in the entire area. Of the 2,000 stone arches within the park, Delicate Arch has become a symbol of the state of Utah. It is among the most famous geological features in the world. Many of Arch's famous rock formations are easily seen from the single road that goes through the park. But Delicate Arch is not visible from a car. Some visitors choose to walk to 2 viewpoints. But even from the viewpoints, Delicate Arch is still more than a kilometer away. Many visitors choose to hike up to see the famous arch. The trail is 5 kilometers. It is the most popular hike in the park. The walk is difficult and steep. It offers no shade. The sun is extremely strong. In summer months, the temperature can rise to 40 degrees Celsius. Park officials tell hikers to take at least 2 liters of water with them. In winter months, ice and water can make the sandstone trail extremely slick.
Along the way, hikers pass a wall of ancient animal drawings created by the Ute Indians. These are called petroglyphs. Petroglyphs exist throughout the park. They are a reminder of the long human history in this harsh environment. Before reaching Delicate Arch, hikers must walk on a long and narrow rock ledge. The trail is often crowded with people, but most say the heat and crowds are worth it. Delicate Arch stands alone above a natural sandstone bowl. It rises up dramatically from the flat land that surrounds it. On one side of the arch, the sandstone gently twists. On the other, a severe crack cuts through the narrowing rock. Those who hike to its base appreciate and understand why it was once described as delicate. Most visitors to Arches National Park would agree that there is no other place quite like it in the world. It is quiet and dreamlike, unpredictable and violent, old yet ever-changing. A trip to Arches is like visiting another world. I'm Ashley Thompson.
And I'm Katie Weaver.
And that's our program for today. Join us again tomorrow to keep learning English through stories from around the world. I'm Ashley Thompson.
And I'm Dan Novak.